And speaking of the Tao eluding us, the Tao eluded me until I was about 20 years old, when a friend of mine, and I always joke, a friend of mine who later robbed me, later was living in an apartment and stole my Revenge of the Jedi poster.
That was the one thing he took.
That's right. But he gave me the gift of this book called, and he told me I had to read it when I was 20 years old, called The Tao of Pooh.
Oh, maybe fair exchange, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Now that poster's worth like $1,500. Okay, I'm just going to calm down. So he gave me this book called The Tao of Pooh, and I think many Western people or Americans or whatever kind of learned about the Tao through this book.
Many, yes.
And the book is basically, here's a little description. It's Winnie the Pooh personifies the principles of Wu Wei, the Taoist concept of effortless doing, and Pooh, the concept of being open to but unburdened by an experience. It's also a metaphor for human nature. In contrast, characters like Owl and Rabbit overcomplicate problems, often overthinking to the point of confusion, and Eeyore pessimistically complains and frets about existence, unable to just be. Hoff regards, the author Benjamin Hoff, regards Pooh's simple-minded nature, unsophisticated worldview, and instinctive problem-solving methods as conveniently representative of the Taoist philosophical foundation. And the book also incorporates translated excerpts from various books of the Tao's, like from Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu. So, yeah, so I first read this book when I was in college, and my whole life, I had been taught that, you study, you go to school, you do this, you buy a house, you get married, you do all these steps in life, and and I was raised in a very strict Christian household, and then eventually, at some magical point, you will be happy. Then
you'll reap your reward.
You will get the great reward. And this,
if not here, then in heaven later, right?
Right. And if it's not even being served in this existence, you'll get it on the back end. So, and that's how I think many people are programmed, that this great feeling of success or this feeling of unending happiness or whatever is just right around the corner. And this book in Taoism, in introducing me to Taoism, one of the first things I really took from it was this idea that, it's all right now. There is no future, really. Everything that is happening right now,
yes.
And it's about embracing it and tuning into it.
Yes.
Is that? Let me read a little excerpt. So there's a section on page 97, and it's about how Rabbit they go to Rabbit's house, and Rabbit is missing, and then put up a sign on his house that said "Busy back soon" instead of writing "Busy back soon." There's a misspelling. So they start talking about the busy backs and people who are running around their whole lives, working hard to try to overachieve and all this and not appreciate what they have. And it says that these people are possibly looking for a great reward. Our busy backs in religion, scientists, and business ethics have tried their hardest to convince us that there is a great reward waiting for us somewhere, and that all we have to do is spend our lives working like lunatics to catch up with it. Whether it's up in the sky, behind the next molecule, or in the executive suite, it's somehow always farther along than we are, just down the road, on the other side of the world, past the moon, beyond the stars. It's a way of life that keeps saying, around the next corner, above the next step, and works against the natural order of things and makes it so difficult to be happy and good that only a few get to where they would have naturally been in the first place, happy and good. And the rest give up and fall by the side of the road, cursing the world, which is not to blame, but which is there to help show us the way. So that was one of the heaviest points of the book that I took from it, is just going, oh wow, it's all right now, it's that it's the old realization of the guy who's been locked up in a prison the whole life and didn't realize that he had the key.
Yes. Yeah, I like this from the book, this quote from the Tao of Pooh. Do you really want to be happy? You can begin by being appreciative of who you are and what you've got.
Right.
Kind of like we were discussing a few
Right.
minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because if we're always chasing something out there in the future, someplace else, something that we don't have, the very act of grasping for it often pushes it further away.
Right.
Because we haven't created the space for it by allowing to being fully present in the moment, which, remember, the universe, the Tao, is already perfect.
Right.
Everything we can imagine is already, and things that we can't even imagine are already there.
Mm-hmm.
And so where is there to go? What is there to get?
Yeah.
You know, it's a matter of letting in, really, and appreciating what's really already there.
Right.
And then trying to put into relief the aspect of our consciousness that prevents us from realizing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If meditation is useful for anything, it's useful for that.
Right.
You know, highlighting the obstacles, because if you never see it as an obstacle but keep using it, yeah, you'll just beat yourself over the head forever.
Right. Right. And you get stuck in the rat race, and you get stuck in the hamster wheel of life, with no way to get off it. Let's see here.
Without realizing that we actually are in the stream, we're in the flow of this ongoing river of life, and we're immersed. We are immersed in it. You know, the Chinese say that the universe is what? A sea of qi.
Yeah.
Right. We are immersed in the Tao at all times, but we can not know that. Mm-hmm. We can not be in the Tao, but we can definitely not know it.
Right. It's the old Buddhist idea of a frog explaining to a tadpole dry land.
Yes. Here's another great quote from the Tao of Pooh. "Rabbit's clever," said Pooh thoughtfully. "Yes," said Piglet. "Rabbit's clever. And he has brain." "Yes," said Piglet. "Rabbit has brain." There was a long silence. "I suppose," said Pooh, "that's why he never understands anything."
That's great.
Again, trying to use the left brain particularly to understand the Tao.
Mm-hmm.
And our brain can only understand things that it can name, right? Things that it can define, things that it has a word for,
right.
In other words. And English is not terribly good at that.
Right.
And I don't think any language is fully competent in that, because there are huge aspects of human experience that we have no language for. Mm-hmm. But we do have the capacity to apperceive it,
right.
at a level beyond thought,
right.
at that level of being, at that level of just attuning to what is. You may not be able to name it, but you can feel it, and you
right.
can experience it, and you can process it at that level, at that experiential level, and then that expands you just as a perceiving organism, so that as you live your life, you have this fullness of nature now. As you might say, it has your back. Nature now has your back. Right. The Tao has your back,
right.
Because you have opened yourself to the flow of things that you may not be able to immediately explain or understand, but that doesn't mean that you aren't open to it. Right. You're receiving it, but you don't need to define it.
And by defining it, we often limit it.
Yes.
Now it's in a box. Now it is a thing. Now it's a thing that's defined by other things.
Exactly.
Right. There's a great thing in this where they go to where they talk about the great secret. What Chuang-Tzu, Christopher Robin, and Pooh are describing is the great secret, the key that unlocks the doors of wisdom, happiness, and truth. What is the magic, mysterious something? Nothing. To the Taoist, nothing is something, and something, at least the sort of thing that many consider to be important, is really nothing at all. Our explanation of this will attempt to give some indication of what the Taoists call Tai Su, or the Great Nothing. We'll begin with an illustration from the writings of Chuang-Tzu. On his way back from the Kunlun Mountains, the Yellow Emperor lost the dark pearl of Tao. He sent knowledge to find it, and knowledge was unable to understand it. He sent distant vision, but distant vision was unable to see it. He sent eloquence, but eloquence was unable to describe it. Finally, he sent empty mind, An empty mind came back with the pearl.
Indeed.
So, yeah, and the book also completely changed my view of nothing and saw the importance of nothing, which is many times, I was taught through other spiritualities or whatever that you're waiting to be fulfilled by things, that a fulfillment is coming, and that people are in a natural state of lack that then needs fulfillment from, God or from another human being or from, anything. But this book, and then bringing me into Taoism, made me realize that nothing is just an opportunity to be filled.
Yes.
And as they say, the silence is a note. It's a very important note. And it's the idea in the Tao Te Ching about it's the hole in the middle of the wheel that makes the wheel run, right? And so that it's like flipping reality on its head, of like just embracing nothing, embracing not doing, embracing a silent mind, yes. Embracing not having to be anything or anybody or a part of any group or having to, the power of nothing is really incredible,
Like that old saying about the cup, right?
Yeah.
The usefulness of the cup is in its emptiness.
Right.
Because now it can be filled.
Right.
If it was already full, where do you go with that?
Yeah, right. Now it's useless.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's filled with something old, something that's already been there, meaning there's no place for the present moment, because the present moment is unfolding continuously every second.
Right.
And so if we're not empty, there's no place for it.
Right. That's if my mind is so busy just going over 50 different problems at one time, I'm not going to notice that green leaf that you showed me. Emptiness is more powerful than anything. And the moment you stop defining emptiness as a negative thing, you emotionally change, because people have moments of feeling empty. Yes. And now I embrace it versus so you're always just good. You're always in that sea of chi, right? Because you see that as a positive, and I don't think that most people feel that way.
No, certainly not here in the West, no.
Yeah, and it's such a simple understanding that redefines everything almost. And this book provided that, and then,
Now, I really like it. It's a great little book, and it's a lot of fun, kind of whimsical characters in there. And yet he's managed to, I think, capture some really important truths about life and about the nature of the Tao. Here's another great quote from the Tao of Pooh. Wisdom, happiness, and courage are not awaiting somewhere out beyond sight at the end of a straight line. They're part of a continuous cycle that begins right here. They're not only the ending, but the beginning as well.
Right.
Yeah. It's always right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
But because we are looking so far ahead, we can't see it.
Right.
We're only looking at outcomes, not the present moment.
Right.
But remember, the Tao contains all. And it's only our looking at outcomes down the road that prevents us from seeing that.
Mm-hmm. Benjamin Hoff does a great job of kind of setting up where Lao Tzu sits on the kind of spiritual continuum of the East, and he shows the famous painting of the vinegar tasters, where you have the Buddha tasting the vinegar, and life is suffering, so he sees it as bitter. Mm-hmm. And then I forget Confucius's reaction to the vinegar, but it's also very negative because it's bitter and doesn't taste good. And then Lao Tzu's just smiling because it's supposed to be bitter. Right?
It's fulfilling its nature.
Yes, it's being its own nature. So then he goes into it saying, to Lao Tzu, the harmony that naturally existed between heaven and earth from the very beginning could be found by anyone at any time, but not by following the rules of Confucianism. As he stated in his book, the Tao Te Ching, Earth was in essence a reflection of heaven, run by the same laws, not by the laws of men. These laws affected not only the spinning of distant planets, but also the activities of the birds and the forests and the fish of the sea. According to Lao Tzu, the more man interfered with the natural balance produced and governed by natural laws, the further away the harmony retreated into the distance. The more forcing, the more trouble, as you were saying earlier. Whether heavy or light, wet or dry, fast or slow, everything has its own nature already within it, which could not be violated without causing difficulties. When abstract and arbitrary rules were imposed from the outside, struggle was inevitable. Only then did life become sour. Rather than turn away from the world of dust, Lao Tzu advised others to join the dust of the world. What he saw operating behind everything in heaven and earth was called Tao, the way. A basic principle of Lao Tzu's teaching was that the way of the universe could not be adequately described in words, and it would be insulting to both its unlimited power and to the intelligent human mind to attempt to do so.
Yeah, I often think that, we have to be open to allow things to just be as they are, and then appreciate them for being what they are.
Yeah.
Because if something is not appreciated for what it is, then we're trying to force it to be something that it is not. Mm-hmm. And we do that to ourselves all the time, I think.
And lots of the world's strife is caused by humans' arbitrary laws trying to control one another, control their minds and their movement, and creating borders and distinctions, and that's
when we're really here to appreciate each other.
Yes.
And to appreciate our diversity and our difference.
Right.
Because that's what makes the world unique and interesting and new every moment.
Right.
If everything is just is laid out in advance and planned and homogenized, where's the fun in that?
No, there isn't.
That's keeping life safe. So safe, so predictable. But if life is safe and predictable, one thing it is not is spontaneous and fully present in the present moment.
Right.
You might say it's being anti-Tao.
Right. And there are many who find safety and find comfort in homogeny, and
Yes.
wish to make others live in it. And I say, you stick to your own boring life and have that for yourself. But don't push it on me.
Don't impose it on the rest of us.
Don't impose your ideas of safety on top of me.